Okay, so today we're going to talk about one of the most secretive and honestly, one of the most powerful tech companies on the entire planet. We're talking about a company whose founder has a very specific vision for the world, and that vision is making its way from a Silicon Valley boardroom straight into the White House. Let's dig into how that's happening.
So, what is this company at the heart of our story? I mean, for most people, the name Palantir probably sounds like something straight out of Lord of the Rings, and, that's not an accident. But what does this company actually do?
Well, on paper, Palantir is a data analytics company. It got its start way back in 2003, and here's the kicker. It was launched with seed money from In-Q-Tel. Now, if you've never heard of them, In-Q-Tel is basically the CIA's own venture capital firm. So right from day one, from its very DNA, Palantir has been wired into the U.S. intelligence community. Its whole purpose is to help governments sift through just unimaginable amounts of data.
But, that official definition, it doesn't even come close to capturing the sheer power we're talking about here. One source put it perfectly. They called Palantir a Swiss Army knife for data warlords. And that phrase, that really starts to give you a sense of the kind of capability we're dealing with.
All right, so to really get what's going on here, we first got to look at the tools themselves. Because this isn't your average startup making, food delivery apps. This is something else entirely. We're talking about military-grade, intelligence-grade technology.
So Palantir's whole world is really built on three core platforms. First up, you've got Gotham. That's the famous one, built for spy agencies, for the military, for police departments. Then there's Foundry, which is designed for huge corporations and big civilian government projects. And then, sort of holding it all together, is Apollo. Think of it as the engine under the hood, the infrastructure that lets Gotham and Foundry run literally anywhere, from inside a submarine to a server in a war zone, even when it's totally offline.
So how does something like Gotham actually work? It's what's called a data fusion platform. It can hoover up hundreds of totally different kinds of information. We're talking drone footage, financial records, social media chatter, phone records, and it stitches it all together in real time. The end result is this single, interactive, God's eye view connecting dots that no human could ever possibly see on their own.
And this isn't theoretical sci-fi stuff. This is very, very real. Palantir software was reportedly part of the toolkit used to help find Osama bin Laden. It's been used by ICE for mass deportation raids. Right now, as we speak, its AI is helping direct artillery strikes in Ukraine. On the corporate side, it's managing supply chains and flagging bank fraud. Look, depending on where you stand, this is either incredibly impressive or it's deeply terrifying. But no matter how you feel about it, one thing is for sure, it is immensely powerful.
But where does all this technology come from? I mean, all of that power, all of that influence, it can really be traced back to the worldview of one person, Palantir's co-founder, the controversial tech billionaire, Peter Thiel. To understand the company, you absolutely have to understand his ideology.
And Thiel, well, he doesn't mince words about how he sees the world. He once wrote, and I'm quoting here, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." Just let that sink in for a second. That's not just some random thought, it's a mission statement. It's the philosophical foundation for pretty much everything he does.
So let's break that down. What you have are two fundamentally different visions for how a country should be run. On one hand, there's traditional democracy, with things like popular accountability and established institutions. But in Thiel's vision, it's a completely different game. It favors a system run by brilliant elites, one that disrupts the state and replaces messy democratic processes with a more centralized, tech-driven system. Some people call it a post-liberal technocracy.
But an ideology is just an idea. To really put it into practice, you need political power. You need somebody on the inside. And for that, Thiel found who he believed to be the perfect candidate to carry this vision forward. And that's where JD Vance enters the picture.
Now, this relationship wasn't some sudden political alliance. It goes way back to Yale Law School. Vance was a student there, and he went to a lecture by Thiel that he later called life-changing. After he graduated, Thiel hired Vance to work at his venture capital firm. So this wasn't just a job, it was basically an apprenticeship in Thiel's worldview. So by the time 2021 rolled around and Vance decided to run for Senate, Thiel was right there, ready to put his full weight behind him, ultimately helping pave his way to the vice presidency.
So just how much weight are we talking about? Well, how about a single check for $10 million? That's how much Thiel dropped into a PAC supporting Vance's Senate run. That one donation, overnight, put Vance on the political map.
Look, a check that big, you can't just call that a donation. That's not just a contribution, it's an investment.
Sources have called it exactly what it is. It's king-making. The whole argument is that without Thiel's money and his network, JD Vance's political career might have never even gotten off the ground.
Okay, so now you can start to see all the pieces clicking into place, right? You've got the ideology, you've got the incredibly powerful technology, and you've got the political candidate. When you put them all together, they form what you could call a technopolitical pipeline.
Here's how that pipeline works. It's a pretty clear four-step process. Step 1, you start with the ideology. Thiel's vision of a state run like a tech company. Step 2, you build the tools. That's Palantir software, which is already deeply embedded in government agencies. Step 3, you get political access by installing a hand-picked candidate like JD Vance into a major position of power. And the final step, that whole Silicon Valley agenda gets a desk in the White House.
And make no mistake, this is way bigger than just Thiel and Vance. They're just the most visible part of a much wider ecosystem of tech billionaires, a network that includes massive figures like Elon Musk and David Sachs. It's a movement that promotes this populist, nationalist agenda that, when you peel back the layers, fundamentally blurs the lines between what a private company is and what the government does.
There's a really great analogy that sums this all up. Data is the new oil, and Thiel is building the refinery. It's perfect because it gets to the heart of the matter. In the 21st century, the ultimate source of power isn't just having data. It's controlling the infrastructure that processes it. It's owning the refinery.
So why should you care about any of this? Because this pipeline we've been talking about, it isn't just about who wins the next election. This is about fundamentally changing the very nature of how our country is governed, what privacy means, and what democracy itself is going to look like in the future.
If you look at the public-facing strategy, what you mostly hear are the culture war talking points. Anti-woke, populism, all of that. But if you look under the hood at the underlying goal, it is so much more ambitious. It's about engineering a system of government that runs with the efficiency of a private company, is managed by software, and, this is the most important part, is insulated from the messiness and unpredictability of public opinion.
And here is the craziest part about all of this. This isn't some shadowy conspiracy happening in secret back rooms. Not at all. Thiel and his allies are incredibly open about their goals. They write about it in essays, they talk about it in speeches, and they fund it with their political donations. This whole thing, it's happening right out in the open for anyone who's paying attention.
And that right there, that leads us to the biggest vulnerability of all: simple public ignorance. The truth is, most people have absolutely no idea what Palantir is or what it does. They don't know how much of our data, both public and private, is already flowing through these systems every single day. And that matters, because once this kind of technology becomes the basic operating system for the government, it becomes almost impossible to ever unwind it.
Which leaves us with one final and, I think, pretty critical question. The pipeline from Silicon Valley to Washington has been built. The software is installed. The political players are in position. So, what happens when we all wake up one day and realize we're living inside a system that we never voted for, and we discover that there's no way to turn it off?